Why you'd cry as a coal miner in 1800s Britain. Before we begin, what hour found you here tonight? Can't sleep? Neither can many others. Drop your time below, I always read them. Congratulations. You've just been hired as a coal miner in 1800s Britain. The job offer came from a man with 3 teeth, 1 eye, and a handshake so greasy you considered boiling your own hand afterward. But work is work, and you've got a family to feed, or a landlord to dodge, or simply nowhere else to go. The economy doesn't care why you're here, only that you are. They hand you your equipment, a pickaxe that feels like it weighs more than your childhood trauma, a helmet that's just a cloth cap pretending to be useful, and a lantern with a dent so deep it likely witnessed a cave-in firsthand. There's no formal training, just a nod toward the shaft and a grunt that translates roughly to, "Try not to die." The pit looms in front of you like a yawning mouth, black, damp, and very hungry. It's surrounded by smoke, the faint odor of manure, and the screaming of distant machinery that somehow sounds vaguely disappointed in your life choices. You descend down a narrow wooden shaft in a cage barely wider than your shoulders. It jerks, groans, and shudders like it's about to quit mid-job. You grip the bars. Someone coughs. Someone else mutters a prayer. The light above shrinks until it's a pinprick. Then it's gone. Welcome to your new home. It smells like damp socks, dead fire, and other men's sweat. The walls weep moisture. The ceiling hangs low like it's thinking about giving up. Your feet hit something that might be rock, might be mud, might be both. You don't ask. You just start walking. The foreman barks orders, but it's less team building and more mildly aggressive herding. You're pointed toward a passage with beams every few feet, holding up a ceiling that creaks in a language only carpenters and the condemned understand. You duck automatically. You learn quickly. There's no welcome party, no safety briefing, just coal, endless, joyless coal. Your job is to chip it loose with your pick, load it into carts, and repeat until your arms give out or your lungs do, whichever breaks first. The first thing you notice is the dark, not just any dark. This is primordial, oppressive, soul-sucking dark. Your lantern gives off barely enough light to make your own hands visible. Beyond that, nothing. Just black silence, broken by the occasional drip of water and the echo of some poor soul coughing, like he's trying to dislodge a lung the hard way. You meet your co-worker. He's 45, looks 70, and smells like a fermented sock left in a kettle. He says nothing, just grunts and starts digging. You do the same. You'll learn to speak grunt soon enough. Your first swing hits the wall and rebounds directly into your shin. It's going to be a great shift. You chip, you shovel, you sweat. Within an hour, you've developed blisters in places you didn't know had skin. Coal dust clings to your face, your arms, your teeth. You inhale it with every breath. It coats your throat like gritty tea. You cough. The man next to you doesn't flinch. He just spits something black onto the ground and keeps swinging. You follow his lead. The air feels thick, like it's been chewed on by 100 men and politely passed down to you. There's a breeze somewhere, but it's not fresh, just colder, wetter, more suspicious. You can't remember what outside air feels like. You miss wind, and birds, and the sky. Your lamp flickers. You panic. It steadies. You don't. 2 hours in, someone yells, "Heave!" and a cart trundles past, pushed by a boy no older than 10. He's barefoot. His toes look like they've been through several wars and lost everyone. He smiles at you. You try to smile back, but your face is caked in coal and grief. You lose track of time. The sun doesn't rise down here. It just forgets you exist. Your body aches in new, creative ways. You swing. You lift. You repeat. Your sweat turns to grime. Your grime becomes identity. You are no longer a man. You are part of the mine. A sharp crack echoes down the shaft. Everyone freezes. The silence is louder than the noise. Then, nothing. Just a joke from someone with too many missing teeth to pronounce the punchline. You laugh anyway. Laughter keeps the roof up. That's the rule. Your shift is halfway over, only 6 more hours to go, and that's being optimistic. The halfway mark in the shift is not a celebration. It's more of a grim acknowledgement that you've survived long enough to be miserable for even longer. Your back has started to hum like a broken cello. Your hands, raw, blistered, covered in a layer of grime so thick it could legally qualify as soil. Your left knee keeps making a sound like a rusty hinge every time you stand. You try not to think about it. Thinking leads to caring, and caring is the quickest way to get crushed under a rock while worrying about your pension. Spoiler, there is no pension. You glance at the lunch spot. Lunch is a stretch. There's a plank nailed to 2 stones that counts as a bench. You sit anyway. It's wet, always is. The foreman doesn't allow breaks, not officially, but he's off yelling at someone else right now, and the older lads taught you the rule. If he can't see you, you're invisible. You eat with one hand and keep your pickaxe close with the other. Your meal is bread so hard you consider using it as a tool. You gnaw it like a rat, breaking off small chunks and trying not to lose a tooth. You have one piece of cheese, slightly, green. It's the most flavorful thing you've had all week. You savor the mold. It's free seasoning. Water comes from a flask that used to be your father's. It tastes of tin and something you don't want to think about. The lad next to you drinks straight from a puddle, doesn't even blink. You silently pray to whichever damp and uncaring God governs this mine that you never get that thirsty. A bell rings faintly down the shaft, not a lunch bell. Just one of the miners tapping his pick against a pipe. Code for, get back to it. You sigh. Not out of frustration, but because it's the only sound you're allowed that doesn't cost wages. You stand. Your knees crack again. Someone behind you mutters, still breathing I see, in a tone that's somewhere between jealousy and admiration. You don't respond. Words are for men with energy. Back in the tunnel, it's somehow darker than before. Your lamp sputters. You hold it close. The flame steadies, but the shadows remain thick and bold, like they're gaining confidence. You grip your pickaxe and return to swinging. Every now and then, you hear something strange. Not voices. The mine doesn't talk that clearly, but the rock shifts. It groans. It breathes. You begin to believe the pit is alive, and it doesn't like you. You chip at it anyway. The older men work methodically, like monks praying through muscle memory. One of them, Edgar maybe, leans over and whispers, "Don't rush the swing. The coal comes when it's ready. Rush it, and the coal rushes back." You nod like you understand. You don't, but you appreciate the poetry. An hour passes, maybe 2. Your fingernails are gone under the grime. Your pick feels like part of your arm. You swing until the rock gives, then shovel until the cart fills, then do it all again. Your shoulders scream. Your wrists click. You stop noticing. Pain is just another rhythm down here. Suddenly, a sharp whistle. A warning. Everyone freezes again. That silence, louder than thunder. Then, a groan. Deep. Terrible. The ceiling, above you, shifts. Dust rains down like judgment. You grab the nearest beam and brace. Nothing falls. Not this time. Someone further down isn't so lucky. You hear it. A thud. A cry. Then silence. No one moves. The foreman walks past, says something about bad luck, and keeps going. You don't follow. You return to swinging. There's work to do. Always work to do. When the shift finally ends, it doesn't feel like relief. It just feels like permission to stop dying temporarily. You stagger to the lift cage with the others. No one talks. The only sound is the shuffle of boots, the creak of the ropes, and the faint hiss of lamps extinguished one by one. The lift rattles its way up, slowly, mockingly. You count each second like a prisoner marking a wall. At the surface, the air hits your lungs like a slap, not because it's clean, It's not, but because it moves. It's wide. It has sky in it. You cough, then breathe, then cough again. It's a process. Outside, the world hasn't changed. Just you. You are darker, wetter, smaller. You limp toward the shed to hang up your gear such as it is. The hat goes on a nail. The pickaxe in a barrel. The lamp, dented, soot-stained, flickering even when it shouldn't, goes on the hook. You stare at it for a second. You hate it, but you'll hold it again tomorrow. Your pay comes at the end of the week, assuming you make it that far. Assuming the ceiling doesn't cave in. Assuming the gas doesn't find you. Assuming no one blames you for something you didn't do. That's a lot of assumptions. As you leave the yard, a boy runs past you, excited. His father got him a job in the pit. He can't wait to start tomorrow. You don't say a word. You just nod and keep walking. Because what would you even say? Welcome to the pit. No one ever really welcomes you. You just go down. And eventually, you stay. You wake up coughing. Not a polite morning cough, the kind that sounds like you're clearing your throat for breakfast conversation, but a wet, rattling, lung-peeling fit that sends a black glob of something unprintable flying across the room and landing with a thud. You stare at it. It stares back. You're not sure who blinked first. You wipe your mouth and sit up. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a mattress stuffed with straw, wood shavings, and what may or may not be leftover horsehair. The blanket clings to you like a wet towel. You toss it aside, then immediately regret exposing yourself to the icy air. Your shirt, your only shirt, is stiff with yesterday's sweat and coal dust. You sniff it once, then decide against any further reflection. You pull it on, cold and damp and perfectly miserable. Your boots wait for you by the door, although wait implies they have dignity. One sole is flapping like a hungry fish. The other has a hole big enough to let through philosophical doubt. You stuff in newspaper, lace them up, and hope no one notices the new squeak they make when you walk. Breakfast is a crust of bread that's mostly air and imagination, and a mug of something hot that smells like boiled shoe leather. You drink it anyway. Warmth is warmth. Nutrients are a side quest. Then it's back to the mine. The same descent. The same wooden cage. The same slow sinking into blackness. This time with an extra layer of dread. Yesterday the mine was a stranger. Today, it's a friend you owe money to. One you can't quite trust. It groans as you enter. You groan right back. The moment you step into the shaft, you feel it. The dust. Coal dust is not like regular dust. It doesn't sit politely on surfaces waiting to be dusted. It lives. It breathes. It seeks orifices. It slinks into your eyes, your nose, your ears. It coats your tongue in ash. It lines your throat like black velvet soaked in soot. You sneeze once, hard. A cloud of black mist floats into your lantern light, then vanishes. You keep walking. There's no point in wiping your face. The mine will repaint it in minutes. The older miners have developed a technique. They spit every 10 steps, as if daring the dust to come back. You try it. You cough instead. A string of black phlegm stretches from your lip to your collar. You wipe it with your sleeve. Now your sleeve has company. Your job today is the same as yesterday. Pick, shovel, load, breathe, cough, repeat. But everything feels harder. Your muscles ache from the inside. Your knees wobble with protest. And the dust, oh, the dust, clings to your sweat like it's auditioning for a new skin. The man next to you is named Harry. At least, you think it's Harry. Could be Barry. You've never asked him to spell it. He's got a voice like a gravel slide and fingers like tree roots. He's been in the mine for 28 years. He's 35. He coughs with rhythm. You start to match him. A duet of decline. You'll get used to it, he says without looking at you. Then he sneezes violently into his shirt and keeps working. You will not get used to it. But you nod anyway. You're assigned to cart duty for a while. dragging the full ones back to the main shaft and pushing the empty ones in. They roll like coffins. You try not to think about it. Your hands blister. Your arms go numb. You develop a new appreciation for flat terrain, which the mine refuses to provide. Lunch comes, though you can't taste it anymore. Your tongue is a coal sponge. You chew and swallow and feel nothing. One of the men says something funny. You laugh. Black dust flies from your nose. No one flinches. This is normal now. By mid-afternoon, your lungs feel like they've been sandpapered. Every breath is sharp. You cough, and a tiny red dot lands on your palm. You stare at it for a moment, then wipe it on your trousers like it's just jam. It's not jam. Harry sees it, says nothing. The day drags on. The coal keeps coming. The dust thickens. You can't tell where your skin ends and the mine begins. Someone down the shaft coughs once, then again, then doesn't stop. You hear a clatter. The foreman arrives, then leaves. The man does not come back. No one comments. You keep working. When your shift ends, you stagger out into the light like a mole seeing the sun for the first time. You rub your eyes, but they burn. Not from brightness, though that's part of it, but because coal dust has decided to live behind your eyelids now. At home, you try to wash. The water turns black immediately. Your fingernails have vanished into darkness. Your hair is a soot sponge. You scrub until your arms ache, then give up. There's no cleaning this out. The mine lives in you now. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, lungs still wheezing. You don't fall asleep. You pass out, covered in coal dust. Again. By the second week, coal dust isn't just something you inhale. It's something you become. It's under your fingernails, inside your ears, packed behind your teeth. When you scratch your scalp, the residue falls like black snow. When you blow your nose, the tissue looks like it's been used to clean a chimney. You start to suspect you could sneeze hard enough to start a small industrial revolution, and the worst part, no one mentions it, not once. The older miners walk around looking like soot-covered spectres, coughing black clouds into their sleeves, scratching at skin. That's already too far gone. It's not a medical condition. It's a lifestyle. You try to breathe through a scarf today. It's an old one, scratchy and damp. You tie it around your nose and mouth, hoping for a little mercy. 5 minutes in, it's soaked through with sweat and coal paste. You peel it off and hurl it aside. It lands in a puddle and dies a hero's death. Everyone sees this. No one reacts. Harry offers you a bit of advice. He speaks while chewing on something. Might be tobacco, might be coal. Don't fight the dust, he says, picking something from between his blackened teeth. It's like marriage. The sooner you accept it's miserable, the easier it gets. You want to ask if he's talking about coal or his wife, but you're too busy trying to blink the sting out of your eyes. Your tears are black now. Crying feels like leaking soot. There's a lad named Thomas working near your section today. He's 15. Wiry. Full of energy. Too much energy. He keeps whistling. Terribly. The sound bounces off the mine walls and annoys everyone. You're thinking of throwing a rock at him, just for silence. When he suddenly stops, you turn. He's doubled over, hacking so violently it looks like he's about to split in half. He drops to his knees, vomits something thick and black, and then just sits there, breathing like someone's squeezing the air out of him with both hands. A few of the older men glance over. One mutters, he'll learn, and returns to digging. Eventually, Thomas gets up, wipes his mouth, doesn't speak for the rest of the day. You feel a bit sorry for him until you realize you looked just like that your first week, and no one helped you either. That evening, you wash again. Same result. The water turns black. Your skin stings. You stare at yourself in a broken mirror shard propped up against a cracked brick wall. Your reflection is unrecognizable. Sunken eyes, grey face, chapped lips. You run a hand over your jaw and feel bristles coated in grit. You laugh, quietly. You're growing a beard. On the inside, your spit is black by now. So is your sweat. You once overheard a foreman say, "You know a man's a miner when even his dreams smell like coal." At the time you thought it was a joke. Now you're not so sure. You wake up choking sometimes, your mouth tasting of soot, your throat raw, like you've been smoking chimneys in your sleep. The foreman passes by your tunnel today. He gives you a once-over and grunts approvingly. "You've got the lungs for it," he says. You take that as a compliment, which is insane when you really think about it. The next cartload is heavier than usual. The rails are slick. Your boot slips and your shin slams into the edge of the cart. Pain shoots up your leg like it's been waiting for an excuse. You bite your lip, try not to swear, and keep pushing. Later, you find a chunk of coal with a shine to it, not like the others. This one glints a little. You turn it over in your hands. It's beautiful in a grim, greasy sort of way. You almost pocket it. Then you remember the story about a lad who tried that once. The foreman caught him, called it theft, docked his pay, broke his fingers for good measure. You toss the chunk onto the pile. You don't need pretty things. You just need lungs that still work, or at least half of one. By the end of your shift, you're so covered in dust, it feels like you've been carved from the mine itself. You step into the lift, and one of the newer boys whispers, "You look like a ghost." You don't answer. Ghosts don't talk. Back at home, your mother hands you soup. It's hot, salty, and grey, much like your mood. You drink it slowly, aware that it might be the most nutritious thing you've had all week. You don't speak much at dinner anymore. Your voice is hoarse from coughing. Your father coughs too, but louder, more rattling. He was a miner once. Now he sits by the fire most days, wrapped in blankets, hacking into a cloth he keeps hidden in his pocket. You saw the cloth once. It was red. Your little brother asks what the mine is like. You think about lying, saying it's fine, or hard, work, or something noble. But your mouth opens, and all that comes out is a dry laugh that turns into a cough that doesn't stop. He doesn't ask again. When you lie down that night, you can feel the dust still clinging to your eyelashes. You rub your face into the pillow and black smears spread across the sheet. You wonder, as your chest tightens and your throat itches, how long it takes before a man starts coughing blood and stops thinking it's worth mentioning. Not long, probably. You turn on your side, close your eyes, and try not to dream of ash. They start calling you soft hands before you even say hello. Not lad, not boy, not even you. Just soft hands, as if your entire personality can be summed up by the fact you still have all 10 fingers and no visible burns, which in fairness does make you exotic down here. The first man you meet is called Two-Finger Tom. Guess why? Go on, it's not subtle. His handshake is more of a two-point poke, and his grin reveals more gum than tooth. He's been in the pit longer than you've been alive, and probably smells worse than anything you'll encounter this side of actual hell. He smells like coal, rat piss, and ghosts. Then there's Big Ellis. Not because he's particularly tall. He isn't. But his shoulders are so wide he has to walk sideways through narrow tunnels, like a disgruntled wardrobe. He carries the entire mine on his back, or so he says. Nobody argues. Mainly because Ellis once allegedly bit a rat in half during a strike. The rat was winning, he claimed. Your supervisor is a man named Grimley, which sounds made up but suits him perfectly. His face looks like it was carved by a drunk god using a rusty spade. He has no patience, no time, and no eyebrows. They were allegedly lost in a gas flare-up back in '57. He refuses to talk about it, but stares like he's always trying to set you on fire with his mind. It almost works. The rest of the crew, well, they've got names, technically. But you won't hear them used much. Down here, identity is based on what you've lost, or how you scream. There's One-Leg Jack, Whistler, Hollow Joe, Cricket, and Silent Mary, who isn't silent and probably isn't named. Mary, she's just very loud and hits things with a shovel. People keep their distance. They teach you things. Not with books or diagrams, or even sentences longer than 5 words. They teach with grunts, gestures, and the occasional thrown rock. For example, when Whistler waves a finger 3 times and points at the ceiling, that means, don't stand under that. You don't ask why, you move. Later, you notice a crack the size of your foot running along the beam above. You nod. Lesson learned. Ellis teaches you how to swing the pick correctly. Don't hit like a banker, he says, then promptly demonstrates the correct form by exploding a chunk of coal the size of your head. You copy him. You hit your shin instead. Everyone laughs. You become soft shin for the afternoon. Lunch. Breaks are quiet. No one talks much while chewing. Food is too precious, and energy too fleeting. You sit on a plank, wedged between Jack and Mary, eating hard bread that tastes vaguely of burlap. Jack offers you a bite of something unidentifiable. You decline. He shrugs and eats it anyway. You lose a bit of your appetite. Grimly walks past, muttering about quotas and bloody idlers. No one makes eye contact. Back at the coalface, you're put on relay duty. This means standing just far enough away to not be useful, but close enough to get covered in other people's dust. Your job is to pass buckets and pray the roof doesn't collapse. It's not glamorous, but it lets you breathe in a semi-upright position. Then a boy named Benny shows up. He's younger than you somehow, maybe 12, maybe 10. He looks like a damp toothpick with a pulse. He's whistling, always whistling, even while shoveling, especially while shoveling. Does he ever stop? You ask. Nope, says Joe. Not until he chokes. You wait. 3 hours later, Benny coughs, spits black, and keeps whistling. Impressive. Someone starts singing a mining song. It's not uplifting. It's about a man who got trapped and spent 4 days eating his own boot. Still, everyone joins in. The chorus is mostly groans and shoe thumping. You don't know the words, so you hum along like a haunted kettle. That's when the ceiling shifts. A low groan, a shower of dust, then a thump like God dropped something upstairs. Everyone freezes. Grimly yells something. Whistler throws a rope. You don't breathe. The sound fades. No collapse. Not today. Everyone relaxes exactly 2%. You wipe your forehead, realizing your entire face is now grey. Not with effort, just with fear. Tom slaps your back. Welcome to the crew, he says, and hands you a flask. You take a swig. It's either whiskey or rat poison. Either way, it burns and makes your legs warm. You don't complain. By the end of the day, you've earned a few nods. A grunt of approval. Someone throws you a piece of jerky that might have once been beef. You chew it until it gives up. The lift takes forever to rise. Everyone is silent. Grimly smokes a pipe that smells like regret and cloves. The sky, when you see it, looks fake. Like someone painted it while guessing. You blink at it. It blinks back. Your hands are no longer soft. Your lungs, well, they were never your best feature. But the crew hasn't tried to bury you yet. So that's something. By your 3rd week in the pit, the men have stopped mocking you to your face. That's a sign of acceptance, apparently. A compliment, even. You're still soft hands, but now it's said with less spit and more resignation, like, they've accepted you won't die immediately, just eventually. Probably soon. Your boots squelch through a puddle that wasn't there yesterday. You shine your lantern on it. It doesn't help. The water is black, thick, almost syrupy. You try not to think about what's mixed in. Mud, soot, rat droppings, someone's regrets, or all of the above. Big Ellis tells you not to step there again. You nod. You will absolutely forget and step there again. That's how this works. Today you're on rat patrol, which sounds like it involves chasing vermin, but actually means crouching next to an air shaft that's known to collapse and keeping an eye out for movement. If rats flee, it's a bad sign. They know things, like when the roof's about to fall or when a gas pocket is about to make someone's eyebrows a historical footnote. You hate rats. But down here, you also kind of respect them. They're the only ones smart enough to leave when things go wrong. Across the shaft, Mary sharpens her shovel. You don't ask why. You don't want to know what she's planning. She hums something tuneless and scratches her ankle with the blade. Behind you, Whistler is arguing with Hollow Joe about who once dug faster during a cave-in in 72. It ends when Joe coughs into his sleeve and produces something that looks like jelly. Argument over. Then, without warning, two-finger Tom starts laughing. Remember when the new lad dropped his lamp in the sump water? They all turn to look at you. You smile like you meant to do it. They laugh harder. You didn't mean to. You just tripped. But now it's a story, and stories matter here. They give shape to the darkness. You are the lamp dropper now too. A real resume is forming. Soft hands, shin smasher, lamp dropper. Almost impressive. At lunch, someone shares a potato. Singular. It's grey, a little soft, but warm. You take a bite and pretend it tastes like more than just dirt and hope. You offer it back. No one wants it. Sharing here is rare, so is appetite. The conversation turns to injuries. It always does. Big Ellis shows you a scar that snakes down his thigh like a river drawn by a drunk cartographer. Timber prop gave out, he says. Pinned me for 3 hours. Lost half my leg meat. He says this while casually eating jerky. Grimley walks by and says, lunch is over, even though none of you actually moved. It's his favourite phrase. Back to work. Today's task is shoring up one of the older passages, a tunnel so narrow you have to crab walk sideways. It smells like mildew and regret. You crawl in behind Jack, who smells like boiled onions and gunpowder. He coughs every 5 minutes like clockwork. You start to count them. It's the only way to tell time down here. At one point, Jack stops and grunts. Hand me that wedge. You pass it up. He hammers it into the ceiling with 3 practiced whacks. Dust sifts down. You breathe it in. It tastes like crushed ancestors. Suddenly, the wall moans. Not metaphorically. It groans like a sick ox and shifts just enough for pebbles to fall around your boots. You freeze. So does Jack. Then he shrugs. Keep hammering, he says. You do. Because what else are you going to do? Pray? Laugh? Run? No one runs in the mine. You keep working until your fingers are raw and your knees scream every time you shift weight. The tunnel groans again, but Jack sings over it. Something about beer and widows. You join in, not because you know the words, but because silence down here is worse than any collapse. Silence feels final. Eventually, the shaft widens, and you emerge blinking into torchlight. Your back cracks. You think that's normal now. You pass Mary. She grins. One tooth is gold, or just covered in snot. You don't ask. She leans in. You're still here, she says. You nod. She nods back, and that's how you know you're officially part of the crew. There's no initiation, no badge, no certificate, just surviving long enough that no one expects you to disappear. You return to the surface after your shift. The sky hurts your eyes. It's blue, vivid, untrustworthy. Your skin is grey. You cough twice before you even make it to your front step. Your mother hands you a towel. Your sister avoids hugging you. You are a walking chimney now. In bed, you try to sleep, but your ears ring. Not with noise, with absence. Down in the pit, there's always something. Drips, groans, breathing, scraping. Here, the quiet presses. In, you miss the noise. You hate that. Your dreams are full of cracks forming, beams bending, dust clouds swallowing the light, and laughter. Not your own, someone else's. In the dark, the mind starts talking to you around week 4. Not in words. That would be too easy. It speaks in creaks, in groans, in sudden gusts of warm air that smell like old eggs and new funerals. And if you're smart, you learn to listen. It starts one morning when you're crouched near shaft 12 with Ellis, pushing a cart that hasn't been cleaned since the invention of dust. You've just loaded it with your 8th pile of coal when the wall behind you lets out a sound like a dying accordion. You freeze. Ellis doesn't. He just lifts his lantern, peers at the ceiling and mutters, "She's grumbling again." "She?" you ask, like an idiot. "The mine," he says. "She gets cranky in the mornings, don't we all?" Then he spits on the ground and keeps walking. You stand there a second longer, heart thudding in your ribs like it's trying to dig its way out, and wonder if you've gone mad. But you follow him anyway, because that's the rule down here. When something creaks, you don't investigate. You move. Later that day, you meet your first real rat. Not the kind you saw nibbling your bread last week. Not the one that slept on Joe's hat for half a shift. No, this one is smart. Big eyes, bigger brain, smells gas before humans do. And today, it sprints past you like the floor is on fire. You don't think. You just run. You don't even know what you're running from. You just know the rat is leaving, and you trust that rat more than you trust God at this point. Behind you, something thumps, then hisses. Then the tunnel fills with a noise that doesn't have a name, but definitely has consequences. By the time you stop running, you're flat on your stomach next to Mary, who is eating a carrot and watching the smoke curl out of the side tunnel like it owes her money. "Bad air," she says casually. "Probably a fire-damp pocket. Could have been worse." You nod, still catching your breath. "Next time," she adds, "if the rat screams, you scream too. That's protocol." You learn quickly after that. First lesson: if it smells like rotten eggs, you're not about to make an omelette. Fire damp, they call it. Methane gas that builds in pockets until it finds a spark and turns the mine into a very enthusiastic funeral. Second lesson: rats are prophets. If they leave, follow them. If they stare at the ceiling, don't ask questions. Just pick up your stuff and walk very fast in the opposite direction. Third lesson: never trust silence. When the mind goes quiet, it's thinking. And thinking means it's planning something. Joe tells you a story over lunch. Once knew a bloke what ignored a rat. Laughed when it ran. Next day, they found his boots. Just the boots. You nod like this is normal conversation, because it is. Another day, you're assigned to check air quality, not with instruments. Of course, don't be silly. No, you carry a candle on a stick and walk through the shaft like you're courting death with fire. If the flame flickers, you stop. If it goes out, you leave. If it explodes, well, at least it was quick. Your candle doesn't explode, but it does flicker halfway through Tunnel 6, and you feel your stomach drop like it just got dumped down a well. You backpedal faster than you've moved all week. You tell grimly. He shrugs. "We'll rope it off," he says, as if that solves the problem of invisible death gas. Then he lights his pipe and walks away. You begin to suspect most men in charge are just hoping the mine kills problems before paperwork is required. One night, you're deep in the pit when everything stops. No carts, no chatter. Just nothing. Even the rats are quiet. Then you hear it, a low, wet groan from somewhere above. It's not a collapse. Not yet. It's a warning. A whisper from the ceiling. Ellis stops beside you, looks up, licks his finger, holds it in the air like he's checking for rain inside the earth. Then he nods. Time to go. You don't ask questions. You just run. When you surface, it's dusk. The sky is orange, like a bonfire filtered through hope. You suck in air that doesn't taste like metal and mold. It's awful. You love it. The next day, that section of tunnel is gone. Collapsed in on itself like it got bored of existing. No one died. This time. Grimly calls it fortunate. Joe calls it Tuesday. You just call it the mine, doing what it does, reminding you who's in charge. At home, you find soot in your pillow, in your socks, behind your eyelids. You wonder if you'll ever be clean again. Your mother asks how your day was. You say, quiet. She nods, like that's good. But you know better. Quiet is when it's thinking. You learn to follow the rats. That's rule 1. Rule 2, don't ever mention the smell out loud. It's not superstition, it's strategy. You're with Benny, the whistling boy, and Hollow Joe when you catch the scent. You pause mid-swing, pickaxe half buried in a wall of slate, and sniff. It's faint at first, then it thickens. A sour, eggy stench that slides up your nose and settles in your brain like a bad decision. Joe stiffens. Benny stops whistling. That alone is reason to panic. Nobody says gas. That would be bad luck. Instead, Joe mutters, we should go check on the other shaft, which is code for drop your tools, grab the nearest idiot, and walk. Not run, walk. Back the way you came. Running kicks up dust. Dust carries fire. Fire meets gas. Then someone finds your teeth embedded in a coal seam. Benny doesn't get it at first. But the seam's just getting soft, he protests, gesturing at the wall. Joe hisses. Move, boy. So you do. You grab Benny's collar and drag him like an unwilling potato sack. Minutes later, behind you, the shaft breathes. That's the only word for it. The air rushes past your ears like the mine just exhaled something ancient and angry. A moment after that, a low whoomp shakes the floor beneath. Your boots. Not an explosion, just a warning shot. This time. Joe turns, peers into the dark, and nods like he's seen a ghost, politely wave and close a door. Won't be going back there till it airs out, he says. You notice his hands are shaking. You don't mention it. The mine, it turns out, is moody. It stores heat like a furnace and then forgets to vent. It stockpiles gas the way your grandmother hoards biscuits, quietly, obsessively, with no plan for when things inevitably go bad. And when the build-up reaches a certain point, one misplaced spark and half a dozen men become a tragic anecdote and a footnote in next week's shift roster. You ask later why they don't fix it. Grimly looks at you like you've suggested building a cathedral out of licorice. Fix, he says. Fix the mine. You blink, he spits. It's a hole in the earth, not a bleeding piano. You can't fix her. You can only mind your manners and hope she doesn't notice you. Later, you help drag a ventilation cloth down shaft. 8. It's a massive canvas sheet, patched with more stitch than original fabric, and it's supposed to redirect airflow. Keep the gas from pooling. It mostly redirects your faith in engineering. It sags, it flaps, it tears on every splinter it touches. You tie it down anyway, propping it with wooden planks that creak in protest. Grimly says it'll do. You suspect it won't, but you're not paid to suspect. You're paid to not die too quickly. Then there's the lamps. You hate the lamps. Open, flames in a gas-filled mine. Brilliant design. The standard issue is a Davy lamp, which in theory prevents ignition. In practice, they flicker like nervous candles and go out when you most need them. Once, in shaft 5, your lamp sputters. You hold your breath. 1, 2, 3. It steadies. But for those 3 seconds, you could feel the mine listening, measuring your heart rate, deciding if today is your last day. And then there are the canaries. Yes, actual birds. They hang them in tiny cages near the tunnels. If the bird stops chirping, you stop breathing. If the bird falls off its perch, run. If the bird explodes, you're already dead. Ellis calls them feathered prophets. You just call them co-workers with a better death benefit. One morning, Benny runs up to you grinning, holding a cage. She's mine, he says proudly, shaking the tiny bird awake. Got a name? Puffball. You nod like that's reasonable. By midday, Puffball's leaning sideways and flapping her wings like she's heard the whispers in the stone. You all turn around. You do not question the bird. You do not say, maybe it's sick. You walk. That's how it is. The mine doesn't. Just collapse. It whispers first, then rattles, then chooses. And you survive by staying alert. Not to bosses, not to rules, to smells. to rats, to birds. Even the walls talk. The trick is knowing when to listen and when to pretend you didn't hear anything at all. The worst part? You start hearing it even at home. Your bed creaks, your body tenses, a pipe hisses, you leap from your seat, a kettle whistles, you brace for impact, you dream in collapses, you wake to silence and panic because silence means something's coming. You try to explain it to your brother. He works in the textile mill, thinks dust is bad there. He laughs, until he sees your eyes when you smell something strange. Bad air? He asks. No, you mutter, sniffing the breeze. Just burnt toast, but you leave the house anyway, just in case. Tomorrow you're posted to the far shaft. Rat's been jumpy there, Mary says. You nod. You've already packed your lunch and tied your boots twice. Puffball didn't make it. Benny buried her next to a broken pickaxe and said a few words. Now he carries a frog. It's not as sensitive, but it's cheaper. We all adapt, in the end. You meet your canary on a Tuesday. She's in a cage the size of a teacup, swinging from a crooked wire loop held by Grimly like it's the Holy Grail. Her name is scribbled on the side in fading chalk. Petal, she yours now, Grimly says, handing her off like he's giving you a flask or a prayer. You blink. What do I do with her? Keep her alive, he says. Unless she stops singing, then you run. You stare into Petal's beady little eyes. She blinks back, feathered and indifferent. You're fairly sure she already knows more about gas pockets than you do. Later that shift, you learn that Petal is more than a bird. She's an oracle, a prophet, a very judgmental roommate who will not hesitate to die dramatically if you mess up. You carry her into shaft 11, where the air smells faintly of mushrooms and regret. The light from your lamp flickers like it's thinking about quitting. You hang her cage on a nail above your head and go back to digging. 10 minutes later, she stops chirping. You freeze mid-swing. Mary sees your face and hisses, "What's wrong?" You point. Petal is perched very still, her tiny chest puffed up, her head tilted sideways, listening to something none of you can hear. Joe glances at her. Everyone out. No argument. You don't need one. You grab Petal's cage. You walk. Fast. Not too fast. Don't spook the gas. Don't kick up dust. Just breathe slow, move smooth, and pretend everything is fine, even though your stomach's staging a mutiny and your hands are shaking so hard, you're making Petal swing like a metronome for doom. Back outside, Mary claps your shoulder. "Good eye," she says. "You didn't do anything. The bird did, but everyone nods like you saved them. This is the first time you realize the pecking order down here goes. The mine, then the rats, then the canary, then you. You earn respect by not ignoring the ones smarter than you. Next shift, you talk to Petal before going down. Not because you expect a reply, but because it feels rude not to. She chirps once, fluffs her wings, and stares at your bread crust like she knows it's more mold than food. That day, you make it through 3 shafts without a hiccup. You start to feel lucky. Big mistake. On Friday, Benny borrows Petal. "Just for a few hours," he pleads. "My new frog ain't cutting it. Just sits there." You hesitate. It feels wrong, but he looks desperate, and you remember the first week when he helped pull a beam off your leg after the cave-in. "Fine," you say, careful with her. You spend that shift with a borrowed bird named Sooty. He looks like he's been through a divorce and a war. Doesn't chirp, just glares. You hang him up. You dig. You sweat. Nothing happens, but you don't trust Sooty. You keep glancing at him like he might flip upside down or scream. He does neither. He just blinks like he's waiting for you to fail. At the end of the shift, you ask Benny how Petal did. "She's a champ," he says. "Started yelling in shaft 9. We cleared out just before a blowout. You want to be happy she helped, but you also want to never lend her out again. She's not just a canary. She's your canary. Sooty returns to his owner without ceremony. Petal returns to your belt, her cage swinging gently like a halo for the damned. By week's end, the mine posts a new notice: canary maintenance. You're told to feed them a mash of grain and egg once a day. Clean the cage weekly. Don't smoke near them. Someone adds, or yell, in charcoal on the bottom of the notice. Grimly says, they die easy. Try not to make it worse. So you become a part-time coal miner, part-time bird keeper. You learn her sounds: the high trill when the air's clean, the low chitter when it's not. You can tell if she's restless by how often she poops in the corner. You count it like a priest reads omens. One day Petal won't stop chirping. Not the happy kind, the frantic kind, the kind that says the mine is holding its breath. You shout. Everyone moves. 5 minutes later, a vent collapses. Gas leaks. No one dies. That night, you feed her half your biscuit. She accepts it without fanfare. You fall asleep wondering how something so small can keep so many alive. You don't think about how many canaries came before Petal. You assume the number's high. You just don't ask. Miners don't like counting the dead when the dead weigh less than a pocket watch. Still, Petal lasts longer than most. A record, some say. She earns nods from the old-timers and whistles from Benny, who's been using a frog again ever since she saved his skin. You start calling her Sergeant. Quietly. Never in front of Grimly. But it fits. She commands more attention than he does anyway. You patch her cage with copper wire one day. Joe jokes that she'll get promoted if she lives another week. What comes after Sergeant, you ask? Saint, he replies. Then comes the Thursday shift. It begins like any other. Stiff boots, tepid tea, and a pre-dawn sky that looks hungover. You swing your pick in shaft 3, whistling badly to drown out the ache in your shoulders. Petal chirps. Gently above you, a little more sluggish than usual. Maybe she's tired. Maybe she's bored. Maybe she knows something you don't. By mid-morning she stops. Not dead. Not fainted. Just still. You freeze. Joe, you call, too quietly. Joe. He's already seen it. His eyes go to the bird, then to the ceiling, then to you. Out, he says, voice like a cracked bell. You don't ask why. You unhook the cage, cradle it close, and move. 10 men follow. No one says a word. 3 hours later, shaft 3 collapses. Not a blast, not a fire, just the slow, grinding shrug of a mountain that no longer cares about your lunch plans. The timbers snap. The air groans. The dust rises. And the silence afterward is deeper than death. Petal survived. Barely. But her lungs didn't. By evening, she's gasping in her cage, feathers puffed and trembling. You hold her in your hands like she's a candle you can't let go out. Grimly says, it happens. You want to throw him into a wall. Benny offers a spoonful of water. She doesn't drink. At dusk, you carry her to the tree behind the tool shed. It's crooked, ugly, but it's green. One of the only things above ground that's not grey. You dig with your hands, 6 inches deep, enough for a hero her size. Benny places a button from his coat into the hole. Medal, he says. Joe mutters something in Welsh. You think it's a prayer, or a recipe. Mary hums a lullaby that sounds like it's meant for both babies and the dying. Then she's gone. No plaque, no statue. Just a lump in the dirt and a name you won't forget. Back underground, everything feels off. You've got a new canary now. Name's Ginger. Looks healthy, bright-eyed, loud. You hate her. She doesn't sing the same way. Doesn't blink at you when you tie your boots. Doesn't ruffle her feathers before every bad shift. She's a bird. Just a bird. Nothing more. You wonder when that changed. Benny notices. She ain't Petal. No, you say. Doesn't mean she won't save you. You nod, but you don't believe it. First week with Ginger, the air's fine. You walk past shaft 3 like it's haunted. Maybe it is. You hum Petal's tune under your breath. hoping the mind hears it and remembers who she was. Second week, Ginger flutters in her cage. You pause. Joe sniffs the air. Nothing. Still, you wait a beat longer before lighting your lamp. Turns out, Ginger's nervous. But she's not wrong. The gas hit further down, in shaft 7. 2 men got sick. 1 passed out. They made it out alive. Barely. You apologize to Ginger that night. She fluffs her wings and pecks at the cage like she accepts your groveling. You still don't like her, but you start to respect her. Later, you help Benny fix a perch inside her cage. He adds a bead from his sister's necklace. For courage, he says. Joe rolls his eyes. You lot going to build her a bunk bed next? Only if she keeps us breathing, you mutter. By the end of the month, Ginger's got a proper feeding schedule, a fixed cage, and a miner's helmet made of tinfoil. You'd laugh, but you've seen men forget their own names and still remember their bird's birthday. You get used to the rhythm again. Work. Breathe. Listen. The mine never stops speaking, but now you've got an interpreter, one that weighs less than a loaf of bread and knows more about methane than the foreman ever will. You begin to understand. The canary isn't your pet, you're hers. She watches you. She sings when you're safe. She goes silent when you're not, and if she dies before you, everyone knows who failed whom. The day begins with a blister, naturally, not the dramatic kind, no bursting, no blood. Just a quiet little welt, right at the base of your thumb, the size of a breadcrumb but 10 times as irritating. You barely notice it until the 4th swing of the shovel. Then it flares like a lit match. Welcome to Tuesday. There's no easing into the pain. You shovel from the moment your boots hit the pit floor. Coal, rock, slag. Sometimes you're not even sure what you're moving. You just move it because the foreman told you to, and arguing isn't worth the breath you'd waste doing it. The shovel's handle is slick with sweat within 20 minutes. Your fingers start slipping, so you tighten your grip, which means more friction, which means more blisters. You cycle through pain like a terrible playlist on repeat. Hollow Joe works beside you. Doesn't say much. Occasionally hums sea shanties without any of the sea or the rhythm. He's missing 3 teeth and 1 earlobe. No one asks how. He's been shoveling since before you were born and will probably still be shoveling long after you die. He calls this the simple life. A chunk of slate falls near your boot. You flinch. Joe doesn't. That means the ceiling likes you, he says. Because it missed? Because it's just warming up. You keep digging. By hour 3, your shoulders have started their own rebellion. Every muscle group in your body is voting to secede. You try switching hands, then switching back. Nothing works. Your back throbs like a war drum, and your thighs shake like they're laughing at you. The coal dust coats everything, your face, your lungs. Your spit turns black halfway through your shift. You blow your nose into a rag, and it comes out looking like tar. You stop wiping after a while. There's no point. You've become a living, breathing soot sponge with a heartbeat. And then there's Benny. He's in the next row over, shoveling, like he's trying to dig through to China. He swings too hard, every time. You've told him. So has Joe. So has Mary. Once, with a slap. But Benny's like that. He only learns by breaking things. Today, it's your lantern. He brings his pick back with too much enthusiasm and not enough awareness. The arc of it glances off a rock and swings wide, straight into your lamp. It hits with a clang and a flicker. The flame sputters. Your world goes sideways. For a second, all you can see are shadows. For another, nothing at all. Your jaw takes the brunt of the swing, not the blade, thank the spirits below, but the handle. It cracks into your face, like the mine's giving you a kiss made of regret and splinters. You go down with a sound somewhere, between a grunt and a curse, and suddenly you're sitting in coal dust, your lamp rolling somewhere near your foot, and Benny hovering like a dog that knows it just ruined dinner. Sorry, he says, which might be the most useless word in the English language at that moment. Joe leans over. You bleeding? Probably, you mutter. He grins. Then you're fine. You test your jaw. Sore. Swollen. Might bruise. Probably won't. Fall off. You retrieve your lantern. The glass is cracked. The flame is out. But the reservoir didn't spill. Miracles exist, apparently. Just not the good kind. You need the medic? Benny asks. You stare at him. The medic is Ellis, and last week he offered to sew my hand with fishing line. Yeah, Benny says. So, no, you sigh. No. Joe gives you a hand up. You take it. The shovel's waiting, still full, still heavy. You pick it up. Again. Because that's what you do. That's all you do. The mine doesn't care about your bruises. The coal doesn't care about your blisters. The shift bell won't ring for hours and your options are twofold. Shovel or get yelled at. And no one wants grimly yelling. He sounds like a dying bullfrog with opinions. You wrap a rag around your hand. It doesn't help, but it feels like you're doing something about it, which is close enough. You keep shoveling. You try not to glance at the wall too often. It shifts sometimes, not in big ways, just a little settling. A whisper of pressure, like the mountain, sighing in its sleep. At some point, you stop noticing how much your body hurts. It just becomes background noise. The real pain is watching the pile never shrink. You clear one load, another takes its place. Someone passes you with a new cart, fresh pickaxe, clean gloves. You want to punch him. You also want his gloves. You think of asking for a new pair. You also think of the last time someone did. They got noted, which is minor speak for ignored so hard it becomes policy. Instead, you wipe your brow, smear coal across your face, swing again. You tell yourself the pain is temporary, just a phase, something you'll get used to. You lie to yourself a lot down here. Because the truth is, by the second half of the shift, the pain isn't temporary. It's transformed. Your hands don't ache anymore. They burn. Your shoulders don't protest. They scream. And your lower back feels like someone stuffed it with gravel and resentment. You find yourself shoveling slower, just by a second. But Joe notices. Of course he does. He doesn't say anything. He just starts singing, that same off-key, droning tune he hums when he's watching someone slide toward collapse. It's not cruel. It's tradition. The way miners check on each other without admitting they care. You speed up. Just a little, but it costs you. You grip harder, and the raw skin between your thumb and forefinger splits open. Blood mixes with sweat, then with dust. You don't stop. You don't even flinch. You just keep shoveling. Because if you pause, the weight settles. The exhaustion catches you. The tremble starts in your arms and works its way into your ribs. And that's when the mine really gets you. You learned that your first week, if you let the fatigue in, the mountain notices. And the mountain doesn't forgive weakness. Now, your shirt is soaked. It clings to you like wet parchment, heavy and foul. Your skin itches with coal dust, sweat, and the occasional sharp whisper of grit that's worked its way inside your collar. You cough, short and sharp. You taste copper. Joe offers his flask. It's mostly water. Probably. Maybe a little something else. You don't ask, you take a swig. It burns, but in a good way. The way anything that isn't coal dust or damp cave air burns. Then you shovel more. The rock pile never ends. It's like trying to empty a river with a spoon. For every load you clear, 2 more seem to appear. The shadows grow longer as your lantern flickers, dim, desperate, and equally exhausted. Someone behind you sneezes. Someone else curses. Benny drops his pick again. The cycle continues. You see something strange in the coal once, a flash of colour, like a beetle wing or a coin. You stop, lean closer. It's a boot. Just the toe. You don't know whose it was. You don't ask. You dig around it carefully. The rest of the foot isn't there. You pretend that's better. You go back to your pile. At some point you think you hear music, a fiddle, faint, distant. You pause and listen. It's not music. It's your heartbeat, pounding in your ears like an angry drum. Still, it's a better soundtrack than Joe's humming. You grip the shovel again. The splinter digs into your palm. You welcome it. Pain means you're still awake. You start counting each shovel load. Not for progress. There is no progress. But for sanity. 72, 73, 74. You forget what comes after that. It's just numbers now. Numbers and coal and sweat and blood. The lamplight casts long shadows across the walls. They flicker, stretch, bend like dancers in a story no one tells out loud. You swear one of them moves the wrong way. Against the flame, you blink. It's gone. The mind plays tricks on you. Everyone says so. You'll swear you saw movement, heard voices, even laughter, especially laughter. Once, Benny swore he saw a boy in a red coat running down a tunnel. Everyone laughed. Then they asked, which tunnel? Because if it was shaft 9, that boy's been dead 15 years. You keep your eyes on the ground now. Always the ground. Safer that way. The cart returns. Empty again. You fill it. Again. Joe grunts. Mary wipes her brow. Benny whistles. The wrong note. Grimly shouts something about quota. You can't hear him over the ringing in your ears. You lift another shovel. The coal shifts, and suddenly, crack. A beam groans above you. Just a little. Just once. Everyone stops. No one breathes. Petal would have chirped right now, you think. She'd have warned you. But Petal's gone. Ginger's quiet today. You wait. Nothing. Just silence and coal and nerves stretched so tight they hum like harp strings. Then, slowly, everyone exhales. You go back to work. Because what else is there? You fill the last cart of the shift with aching arms and a blurry gaze. Joe says you've done well. Grimly doesn't yell. Mary slaps your back so hard you taste iron. You limp out of the shaft, blinking into the grey daylight like a man reintroduced to God. Your hands don't work properly. Your back feels like it's been folded in half and stored upside down. But you're alive. Blistered, bruised, maybe concussed, but alive. And tomorrow, you'll shovel again, because there's coal that needs moving, and you're the fool still standing, in front of it. The words sound hopeful, almost cheerful, like a small parade with coins instead of confetti. You wake up a little faster this morning, not happy but alert. Alert enough to remember it's the one day this month you're technically allowed to pretend you're earning something. But the mind has a sense of humor, and today it's going to teach you a lesson about economics, betrayal, and exactly how far a man can stretch a halfpenny before it snaps and decapitates his dreams. You get paid by the ton, not by the hour, not by effort, not by how many vertebrae you've sacrificed to the gods of coal. No, just by weight. Cold, dusty, uncompromising. Wait, so you shovel with urgency. You load your cart faster than usual. You count every shovelful. Joe helps, though he claims not to care. Mary double-checks the scale, like it matters. But deep down, you all know the truth. The scale lies. It's not even a good lie. It leans to the left. The weights are mismatched. The man who runs it, Mr. Tibbins, of course, has one eye and no sense of shame. He blinks, nods, squints, and deducts settlement dust from your load like he's measuring. Fog with a teaspoon. Your cart gets weighed. Tibbins frowns. Short by 6 stone. You stare at the cart. It was full. Settled then. Or bad coal. Maybe too wet. Too wet. He shrugs. Gravity's a fickle mistress. You want to argue, but he's already written it down in his little black ledger, and once something goes in the book, it may as well be carved into the face of the Queen's tombstone. You get your token, a little brass disc with a number stamped into it. This number, according to Tibbins, the company, and possibly God, represents your share of the week's labour. You put it in your pocket like it's poison, because you know what comes next. The company store. You don't get paid in coins. Not real ones. Not the kind that work outside the village. No, your token is only redeemable at the company store. A place that smells like old tobacco, cheap soap, and someone else's sweat. You hand over your token. They hand you a list. It's not a shopping list. It's an inventory of all the things you've borrowed over the past 2 weeks. 1 pair of bootlaces, 1 tin of dried meat, likely squirrel, 1 bar of soap, 2 doses of something the label claimed was cough syrup, but tasted suspiciously like regret and turpentine. Also, your rent. Because your home, the one-room shanty with the leaking roof, cracked chimney, and ghost of a raccoon living in the rafters, is owned by the mine. Everything is owned by the mine. The ground you walk on, the lantern you carry, the bucket you piss in. And the store reminds you. After deductions, the clerk says, peering at you through the thickest pair of spectacles ever to grace a human face. You owe us 3 shillings and 2pence. You blink. I owe you, he nods cheerfully. More than last month. But you've been eating better, haven't you? You haven't. But you don't say that. You just take the paper receipt that proves you are now less solvent than you were before you got paid. Mary's already outside, fuming. They charged me for the lamp again, she mutters. It's your lamp. They said I scratched it. Did you? No. Pause. Maybe. Joe walks up and tosses his receipt into a puddle. 3 weeks' work and I got half a loaf, 2 tins of whatever they call beef, and enough soap to insult my armpits. What did they charge for your rent, you ask? He grins. Didn't look. That's Joe's strategy. Don't look. Don't ask. Just keep swinging the pick until something breaks. Preferably not his own spine. You sit on a crate, holding your receipt like it might turn into a real coin if you stare long enough. It doesn't. Grimly walks past, pockets full. He gets real. Money. He's a supervisor, a man with buttons on his coat and actual soles on his boots. He looks down at you. Good work this week. You want to spit. Instead, you say, thank you, sir, because if you don't, he'll dock you for insubordination. Again. You head home with a bag that's mostly air. Inside, half a loaf of rye bread so hard it could be used in a duel, a tin of beans that rattles like there's one single bean inside, and a bottle of vinegar labelled tonic. Your mother opens the cupboard and sighs. It's not much, you say. It never is, she replies. And that's the truth of payday. Not a celebration, not a relief, just another reminder that in the coal mines of Britain, even your earnings are someone else's property. And debt? Debt is your reward for doing everything right. Back in the pit, they joke that you'll die in debt and be charged for the burial. You used to laugh. Now you just wonder if they'll bill your family for the shovel. Payday isn't really a day, it's a process, a ritual, a slow unfolding of disappointment carried out in familiar steps, all designed to make you believe you've gained something, until you tally the pieces and realize you've just been looted politely. You sit at the table in your one-room cottage, turning the token over in your fingers. It's lighter than it looks. Funny how something that represents backbreaking labor can feel so weightless. Hollow, even. Like your future. Like your cupboards. Like the promises the company made when you first signed on, and they told you there was opportunity in coal. Your mother places a chipped mug in front of you. Something hot. Maybe tea. Maybe hot water with lies in it. You sip. It scalds. Your tongue. Good. Reminds you you're alive. Outside, someone's arguing in the lane. Loud voices. Accusations. A boy yelling, "You took my flour, you sod!" Followed by the sound of someone being shoved into a wall and someone else walking away, not in a hurry. Another miner, probably. Just trying to get through the day with a crust of bread and a shred of dignity. They're both rare in this neighborhood. You lean your head back and stare at the ceiling. It leaks. You've placed a bucket beneath the drip. You watch it fill drop by drop. It feels like poetry, if poetry smelled like damp and failure. When you close your eyes, you hear the echo of Tibbins at the way station. Short by 6 stone, it replays in your mind like a church bell rung by a petty god. And it wasn't just your cart. Everyone's was short. Mary muttered something about balancing error. Joe said, "That's what they call theft when it's got a ledger." And you just stared at the scale. The numbers always favor the mine. Somehow, your back moves a mountain, but the company's math says you only dug up a pebble. You used to think you could beat the system, work harder, dig more, fill your cart to the brim, and maybe, just maybe, you'd get a payout that didn't come with a warning about how much soap you're using. But no one beats the scale. Not when the weights are older than your tools and calibrated by the same man who sells pickled eggs and tobacco out of his coat pocket. After dinner, if you can call crust and broth a meal, you walk to the company ledger office. Not because you want to complain. Complaining is dangerous. But because you want to understand. You want to see the numbers. The clerk is a thin man, with eyes like 2 dried peas pressed into a sock. He greets you with the enthusiasm of a bored undertaker. "I'd like to check my account," you say. He doesn't look up. "Name?" You give it. He flips through a book the size of a family Bible, finds the page, runs a finger down a column. "Ah," he says. "Yes, still in arrears." "Arrears? Indeed." "How?" He shrugs. "Rent increase, lamp rental, lunch tokens, boot repairs, coal tax, and you took 2 days off last month." "My father died." He nods, sympathetically. "Yes, that's why it's in the book." You stare at the page. There it is, your life in numbers, your work, your debts, your deductions, all tallied in looping handwriting that makes you look like a criminal with bad penmanship. "Can I make payments?" You blink. "I'm paying by working." "Exactly. And if I stop working, you'll be evicted, possibly arrested, likely starve." He smiles. It's supposed to be friendly. It lands somewhere between smug and sinister. "Next," he calls, and you're dismissed. You leave the office with your fists clenched and your mouth full of words that would cost you another shilling if said aloud. Outside, Joe is waiting. "How'd it go?" "I owe money." "Me too." "How much?" He shrugs. "Does it matter?" You walk in silence for a while, down the muddy path, past the lamp house, past the rows of cottages built like apology letters to the concept of shelter. You hear laughter in the distance, a child chasing a chicken, a dog barking. Life goes on, somehow, even when the numbers say it shouldn't. You get home. Your mother's asleep in the corner. Your sister's stitching a patch onto your only decent shirt. She hums softly. Something, wordless. Something older than the mine. You sit down. You breathe. You think about tomorrow. It'll start the same. Wake up. Dig. Bleed. Cough. Weigh. Get paid in brass and disappointment. Watch the numbers shrink and the bruises grow, but you'll show up anyway. Because debt doesn't rest, and neither do you. Not if you want to keep the roof, the bucket, the broth. You lie down, you close your eyes, and you dream of a different job. One where the work is honest, where the pay makes sense, where you don't have to count your life in ounces and ledgers and shortfall. But even in the dream you wake up sore, and someone's shouting about the scale. There's a bell somewhere, maybe a whistle, maybe a man with a pipe and a voice like crushed glass yelling your name. But it doesn't matter. You're already awake. You don't remember falling asleep. You don't remember dreams. Just black. The same black you woke up in. And the same black you'll crawl back into 12 or 14 or 16 hours from now. The shift changed. Yes. But time didn't. You lace your boots in silence. They're wet. Of course they're wet. They're always wet. You're not sure when they last dried or if they ever did. You don't even flinch as your toes slide into cold sludge. Your feet have accepted the damp as permanent residence, like a squatter's rights arrangement between your socks and some sentient mold. Outside, the village is quiet. Not because it's night, not because it's early, but because everyone's either down in the pit or too tired to bother with sound. Even the dogs don't bark anymore. They just blink at you with the same haunted expression you wear every day. You make your way to the shaft, lantern in hand, back bent, eyes squinting against the wind that always feels personal. The sun is either rising or setting, but it doesn't matter. You won't see it again until your next bath, and that's scheduled for whenever it rains hard enough to count. Down in the lift, someone farts. No one reacts. You all descend together, 30 feet per minute, into the bowels of a godless underworld. The man next to you chews something. Tobacco, probably, or coal. You can't tell anymore. At the bottom, the shift boss nods. That's it. No words, no greeting. Just a nod that says, "You're alive. For now. Get to work." The tunnels yawn before you. Wooden beams creak in a way that feels suspiciously like sarcasm. Your light flickers. You start walking, and time stops existing. There are no hours down here, no minutes, no seconds. There's just digging, coughing, dragging, loading, the sound of picks on stone, the shuffle of boots on gravel, the occasional scream from deeper in the mine, which might be a man or a rail or a ghost. No one checks anymore. You swing your pick in the rhythm of a condemned metronome. Thunk, crack, cough, breathe, repeat. You have no idea what time it is. No one does. You mark the shift in pain. When your back starts spasming, that's hour 3. When your hands blister, that's hour 5. When your thoughts start looping like broken machinery and you forget your own name, that's hour 9. Probably. There's a boy 2 tunnels over who keeps time by candle. He carves notches into the shaft wall every time his candle burns out. He's up to 12 notches. On a 12-hour candle. No one has the heart to tell him it's probably shorter than that. You eat lunch at some point. A lump of bread. Hard cheese. A sliver of salted pork that smells like it lost the will to live during the war. You chew slowly. Not because you savor it, but because if you eat too fast, there's nothing left to look forward to. Except work and pain and the exact same meal tomorrow. Joe says it's Tuesday. Mary says it's Thursday. You say it doesn't matter, and they agree. In the mine, all time is before collapse or after collapse. Everything else is noise. You blink, and you're deeper in the shaft. You don't remember moving. You dig. You load. You trip on something soft. You hope it's just a rat. You don't look. The air grows thick. Not smoky. Not dusty. Just tired. The tunnel exhales stale breath. You inhale it like it owes you something. Your chest tightens. Your ribs creak. Your lungs rattle like overused bellows. You were 16 when you started. You're 22 now. Maybe. You think. Your skin is the color of iron filings. You haven't seen the real sun since your sister's wedding. She has 2 children now. You remember their names. Usually. A man near the support beam drops his shovel and sits. Everyone watches. Not to help. Not to scold. Just to see if he gets back up. He does. Eventually, the day continues. Or maybe it started. Or maybe it ended and no one noticed. Your lamp dims. You shake it. It flares for a moment, then settles into a dull orange gloom. That's hour 10, probably. You keep digging. Your body knows the rhythm now. Knows how to move without consent. You're just a passenger, in your own bones. A brain riding inside a suit of meat that forgot how to feel things like joy or sunlight. Time only matters when it stops, and you pray it doesn't. Because when it does, it means the ceiling has collapsed, or the gas has ignited, or the mine has finally decided it's tired of your presence and wants to reclaim your bones. So you keep moving, because movement means you're still here. Sort of. When the whistle finally blows, if it's real, you blink like a mole in daylight. Your limbs respond slowly. Your thoughts even slower, shifts over, or the next one's beginning. Either way, you stumble toward the lift, eyes unfocused, ears ringing, and the man next to you says, "Didn't we just get here?" You don't answer because time is dead, and You're just another ghost carrying a shovel. You dream in black now, not sleep black, not velvet night black, not even the closed eyes kind of black. This is deeper, wetter. It's coal dust black, endless tunnel black. The kind of black that hums and watches, the kind that seeps into your marrow and makes itself at home, scraping the last bits of sunlight off your memories and tossing them down a shaft. When your shift ends, if it ends, you don't go home. You rise, you ascend, but you don't arrive. Your body climbs out of the mine. Your soul stays behind, sitting on a pile of rubble with crossed arms and coal-streaked cheeks, muttering, "I'll catch up." The lift groans as it pulls you up. Not quickly, not safely, just upward. Slowly enough for your muscles to cramp, but fast enough that your knees lock. The smell changes as you rise. Wet rock becomes old wood, then becomes the sour stink of sweat and boiled cloth. Air becomes slightly more breathable. Slightly. Not better. Just less coal in it. You reach the top. Blink. The light stings your eyes, though it's barely more than grey fog and factory smoke. Your pupils shrink like they're ashamed of how wide they got down there. You step onto dirt, but it still feels like stone. Your feet are so used to hard ground, they think the surface of the earth is a trick. You wipe your face with a rag. The rag was once white, maybe. Now it's just black fabric shaped like despair. You blow your nose into it. The result is something between tar and soup. You hear someone laugh. You don't know why, but it sets you off too. You laugh until your chest hurts, then cough until you're on one knee, then wheeze until the laughter dies. And all that's left is the sound of someone vomiting behind the tool shed. Joe. He always throws up after a long shift. No one teases him. It's tradition. You walk toward your lodging. Call it a home if you're generous or drunk. A small wooden box with a roof like a shrug and a door that sticks in every season. You kick it open. It kicks back. Inside, your mother, asleep in a chair. A pot of something thin bubbling over the fire. It smells like carrots and disappointment. Your sister's doing laundry. The water is black. She's using your shirt to stir it. You collapse into the corner. Not onto a bed, just a spot. A corner you've slowly molded into your shape. It understands you now. It supports you more out of sympathy than structure. You lie still. Let the aches bloom. Your shoulder twitches with every heartbeat. Your left knee has become experimental jazz. Your spine feels like someone tied it in a polite knot. But worst of all, you're not even tired anymore. You're past tired, past exhaustion. You're standing in the realm of numb, where your body keeps running just to prove it's not dead. Yet, there's no clock on the wall. You don't need one. The mind decides what time it is. Shift bells and meal whistles. When the mind breathes in, you work. When it exhales, you eat. That's your calendar now. Your days blur together. One long smear of soot and footsteps. Sometimes you think back, try to remember. Something, anything. When did you last go outside? Proper outside, with trees and wind that wasn't filled with dust. You remember a field, once. Before you started, you saw a fox. You think it winked at you, but that might have been a dream. You smell something burning. Dinner's ready. You sit at the table. The table groans. So do you. Your mother ladles soup into bowls. It's thin enough to see through. If it were any thinner, it would be a rumour. You eat anyway. Because hunger doesn't care about quality. Just quantity. And even that is in short supply. Your father mumbles something about a cousin getting work in the city. Cleaner, he says. More light. You nod. Then remember your cousin has been dead for 3 years. No one corrects him, because no one has the energy. After dinner, you don't talk. You just sit, letting time smear past you like a wet coal smear down a white shirt. Except there are no white shirts anymore, just various shades of defeat. Your sister asks what day it is. No one answers. You think it might be Wednesday or Sunday or 1884. It doesn't matter, because tomorrow the bell will ring again. You'll grab your lamp, slide into your boots, and descend again and again and again. Not because it's the start of something, not because it's a new day, but because that's what you do. You dig, you shovel, you cough, you blink, and you return to the dark. Because in the mine, shift change isn't a new beginning. It's just a pause between echoes. And time doesn't live here. Only you do. For now. It starts with a sound that doesn't belong. Not the usual creak. Not the moan of pressure settling or the distant rattle of carts. No, this one's sharper. Hungrier. A snap that echoes differently. A whip crack with weight behind it. Everyone freezes, not for long, just half a breath. Then the dust shifts above your head. The man next to you, Eddie, the one with the laugh like a chimney collapsing, looks up and mouths, "That wasn't us," and then the mind takes him. It's not dramatic. There's no scream. No final speech. Just a roar of falling rock and a cloud of dust so thick you can taste the iron in it. 1 second he's brushing soot off his shoulder, the next he's not. Just gone. You're thrown backward, coughing, blinking grit. From your eyes, the light from your lamp spins wildly, casting dancing shadows over the chaos. Someone yells, "Cave in!" Too late. You scramble up, lungs burning, heart punching your ribs like it's trying to dig its own way out. You count heads. One's missing. You don't say his name yet. You dig, with your hands, with your shovel, with your bare damn soul. Rocks bite your fingers, your palms bleed. You don't care. You're not thinking, until someone grabs your shoulder. It's Joe. He doesn't shake his head, doesn't need to. Just squeezes once and says, "We can't. It's done." You stop. Because the weight of truth is heavier than the rock. It's done. Later, much later, when the pit is silent and the dust has settled like grief over everything, they bring up what's left. In a sack. 1 boot, twisted metal, and a lamp. The lamp's still flickering. Some of the boys say that means he's at peace. Others say it just had oil left. Either way, you can't look at it. They hold a funeral the next day, if you can call it that. There's no priest, no choir, just wet shoes, lowered heads, and silence that wraps around you like smoke. A few words are said, mostly about how he loved to sing, how he was good with cards, how he never once missed a shift. The manager shows up late. He wears a coat too clean for the weather, boots that haven't seen mud in months, and a face carved from polished wood. He says, "Tragic loss." He says, "Our thoughts are with the family." He says, "Safety is our top priority." You say nothing, because when he leaves, he'll forget Eddie's name before he reaches his carriage. But you'll still hear his laugh in the tunnels. You'll still see the gap where he stood. You'll still taste the chalky terror every time the ceiling creaks a little too long. 2 days later, the notice goes up. The cause of the accident, it reads, was natural erosion and failure to reinforce the beam. Oversight on the part of the team. Your team. You read it 3 times. The paper is thin. The ink bleeds. It accuses you quietly, as if whispering through the wall of your dignity. The next payday, your wages are short. Compensation for damaged equipment, they say. Reinforcement lumber. And this one hurts. Final disbursement of wages for Edward McGill, deducted from surviving crew, as outlined in Clause 7. You stare at the number. It's not large, but it feels like a betrayal in ink. Joe wants to argue. Mary wants to punch the clerk. You just sit on the steps and watch a beetle crawl across your boot, carrying dust on its back like guilt. That night, you don't sleep. Not from sadness, from fear. Not of death. You made peace with that in your first month. But of the randomness. The silence. The simple fact that a ceiling can decide it's tired of staying up and take you with it. You dream of beams snapping, of black rain, of laughter turning to rubble. The next morning, you walk slower. You carry your lamp like it's your last remaining friend, and when you pass the spot where it happened, you don't look up. You don't look down. You just breathe shallow, walk fast and pretend you're somewhere else. The shift is quiet, no jokes, no songs, just pics on stone and eyes that don't meet yours. Everyone heard. Everyone knows. You don't get used to it. But you learn to keep going because that's the only rule left. Survive long enough to regret it. You return to work the next day. Of course you do. No one says you have to. No one has to say anything because the mind keeps breathing. And if you're not down there with a pick and a cough and a prayer, someone else will be. The men stand at the mouth of the shaft like condemned prisoners too tired to protest. No jokes, no smirks, just silence and shuffling feet. Your shift boss doesn't mention what happened. He doesn't have to. He just mutters, "Let's keep it moving," and taps the side of his helmet. That's the only nod to Eddie you'll get. The descent feels slower. Every groan of the lift makes your stomach tighten. Every rattle of the cable sounds like it's fraying. You grip your lamp tighter, like that'll make any difference. The air greets you like an old enemy. Damp, thick, familiar. Like a handshake from someone who once hit you. The tunnel feels different now. Same walls, same beams, same flicker of light on wet stone. But it's colder. Or maybe you are. You pass the spot. No markings, no flowers. Just a shovel leaning against the wall, left, there out of habit or denial. Mary touches it once as she walks by, just a fingertip on the handle, like she's checking if the ghost still lingers. You pretend not to notice. The work begins. Dig, load, haul. The rhythm is off. Everyone's slower, more cautious. No one works near the roof without glancing up every few minutes. Every groan of timber makes someone flinch. You count your own breaths. You listen for cracks in the silence. A rock falls, just one, the size of a fist. Everyone freezes. It rolls once, comes to rest near your boot. You all stare at it like it's a warning. Then someone, probably Joe, says, "He's just clearing his throat." And the moment passes. Laughter comes, but it's brittle, like old bread, like it might shatter if anyone breathes too hard. Lunch arrives late, not because of the clock, there is no clock, but because no one wants to eat. You chew anyway. A hard biscuit, some boiled carrots, a sliver of salted meat. It all tastes like dust. The water smells like rust. Joe offers you a bite of his bread. You take it without speaking, because today isn't about appetite. It's about pretending you still have one. Later, you see the foreman walking the shaft. Not your shift boss, the company man, the one with the coat too clean and the clipboard that's never once held a kind thought. He doesn't speak to anyone, just scribbles, checks the beams, stares at the walls like they owe him rent. When he passes by you, you nod. He does not return it. But you hear him mutter, "Should have reinforced this section months ago." And then he writes something else, probably reinforce with cheaper timber. You don't ask. That night, they hold a remembrance, that's what they call it. 3 lanterns hung on hooks, a tin mug filled with stale beer, a prayer led by someone's grandmother who doesn't speak English well, but knows the language of grief just fine. You all stand in the rain, pretending you're there for Eddie. But really, you're all there for yourselves, because you need to believe someone will stand in the rain for you too. Eventually. Maybe. Afterward, the manager gives a short speech. He says, sacrifice. He says grit. He says, the mine runs because of men like Edward. Then he leaves in a dry carriage while your boots squelch in the mud. Mary says, they'll put up a plaque. Joe says, with what money? You don't say anything, because you already know how this ends. No plaque, no pension, just a paragraph. In the next newsletter, buried under announcements about new shaft expansions and tea prices. The next morning, the lift doesn't wait for latecomers. The beams don't hold their breath for prayers. The mine doesn't pause. You put your helmet on. It still doesn't fit right. You shoulder your pick. It feels heavier than yesterday. And you descend again. Not because you're brave, not because you have no choice, but because the mine demands rhythm. And you are a drumbeat, tired, steady, waiting to stop. But not today. Not yet. Because the worst part of it all, you didn't know Eddie that well. You liked his laugh. You hated his whistling. He once gave you half a cigarette when yours broke in your pocket. That's what passes for brotherhood down here. Small things, half a smoke, a shared biscuit, a grunt that means, watch your head. And when one of those small things disappears, it leaves a bigger hole than you expected. You dream that night. In the dream, the mine is quiet, still, kind. You wake up gasping, because that's how you know it was a dream. You notice him the same way you notice a rat, small, silent, and somehow already coated in soot. He's sitting near the pit entrance, legs crossed, a cloth cap too big for his head drooping over one eye. In his lap is a lunch pail dented from someone else's life. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't speak. He just watches. Like he's been here before. New one, Joe mutters. Doorboy. You grunt. You've seen his type. 7 years old, maybe 8 if he's lucky. But luck doesn't stretch far in the mines. It barely covers a shift. He's too small for the carts, too green for a pickaxe, but just right for a trapdoor in the middle of a shaft, one that needs opening and closing. Every time a cart passes, that's the job. Open the door. Let the air pass. Let the cart through. Close it again. 8 hours a day. In the dark. Alone. They call them trappers. You called them something else when you were 1. Moles. Mushrooms. Children fed to the dark. He follows you into the shaft like a ghost wearing boots. Someone leads him to his station, a narrow alcove off the main track, barely wide enough for a stool and a hinged wooden door. They hand him a candle stub, not a lantern, a candle, because he won't be moving much. The boy sits. The door closes behind him. The silence that follows makes your stomach twist. You swing your pick harder than usual that day, not for coal, for the noise. You don't ask his name. None of you do, because names are dangerous. Names get carved into wood above shallow graves. Better to call him kid or lad or not call him at all. Let the shaft forget him. Maybe then it'll leave him alone, but it doesn't, because one day a cart comes back with blood on the wheels. No one speaks. Then the foreman says he fell asleep, and that's all anyone offers. You clench your jaw hard because you remember what it was like. The ache in your legs, the hum of stone in your ears, the darkness so thick it feels like a second skin. You remember blinking so little your eyes started to dry shut. You remember singing to yourself just to prove you hadn't died. Sometimes you still do. A week passes. Then he returns. Not dead. Just quieter. Someone gives him a better stool. You think it was Joe. No one says anything. You work. He sits. You dig. He opens the door. Once, on break, you pass his alcove and hear humming. Not a song. Just a sound, like a rope straining under weight. You don't interrupt. One morning, you find him outside the shaft, poking the ground with a stick, drawing something in the mud. You glance over. It's a dog. Or maybe a fox. Something with ears. He looks up. You say, "Nice." He nods, doesn't smile, just erases it with his heel before the foreman sees. At lunch, he sits alone. You toss him half your biscuit. He nods again, still doesn't smile. You don't expect him to. You just hope he survives long enough to get bitter, because bitter means you're still alive. The days blend. You measure time not in hours but in shifts. not in meals, but in coughs. The boy becomes part of the landscape. Another figure in the flickering light, another shadow that blinks. Once, he falls asleep again. The cart nearly hits him. Joe yells. The boy flinches so hard he cracks his candle on the wall. No light now, just darkness. You offer your lamp. The boy shakes his head, pulls out another candle stub, keeps working. You say nothing because you know the pride, even in the dark, even at 7. One night, the boy sings. A real tune this time. Soft, barely there. Something about a boat. You listen until it stops. Then you lie awake thinking about water, wind, and all the things he'll never know. He's there before you. You spot him as you descend, curled, beneath a support beam, cradling his knees like they're breakable things. His lamp sputters beside him, casting just enough light to make his smallness unbearable. He's drawn circles in the coal dust, and his eyes don't track you right away. You pause beside him. He doesn't flinch, just says, "I didn't sleep. Last night, Mum said the fire was bad again." You nod, that's all you can do. The fire, you know, isn't just in the hearth. It's in the tenement where 4 families share a chimney that clogs every 3rd night, where heat is a gamble and blankets are coin-toss luxuries. You know this because you lived in the same stack once. You remember the cough, the soot that clung to you even in your dreams. He stands, slower than he should, and brushes his knees with little success. Then, like clockwork, he turns toward the shaft, back to his box, back to his door. 8 hours in the dark. You watch him shuffle off and try not to follow with your eyes, like that'll make it easier. Today is heavier. Not the coal, not the work, but everything around it. The tunnel feels smaller, the silence more judgmental. Your arms ache in a way that feels familiar, like grief making a home behind your shoulder blades. At one point, you hear a voice echo up the shaft. The boy, he's singing again, that strange little boat song. Half melody, half murmur. You don't know the words, but the rhythm hits somewhere deep, somewhere sore. It stops suddenly. Too suddenly. You freeze. Joe does too. Then Mary. Everyone stills like birds before thunder. Minute passes, then 2, then the hum of wheels. A cart, coming back empty. No, not empty. Blood, again. It's not like last time. He's not gone, but he's hurt. Someone says the door jammed, that he tried to fix it, that he leaned in too far and the cart clipped him across the ribs. You see him an hour later, lying on a pallet, teeth gritted so hard his gums bleed. The company doctor isn't there, just an old woman with a rag and boiled water. Cracked, she says of the ribs. Or worse, he doesn't cry. You do. Later, when no one's watching. 2 days off, and he's back. Because the family needs the money. Because there are 3 mouths to feed. Because there's no such thing as too young when rent comes due. You see the way he walks now, slower, stiff on one side. His singing's gone. So is the drawing in the dirt. One morning, you bring him a biscuit. Not because he asked, not because you want thanks, but because your hands shook the night before and it felt like something had to be done. He takes it with both hands. No smile, just a nod. That's enough. You don't know his name until weeks later. He drops his cap while running for the lift, and inside the brim, someone stitched it in crooked letters. Thomas. You carry the name quietly for a while, like it's fragile. Thomas. You start calling him that when no one else can hear. When he trips, when he laughs, briefly, at something Joe says. When he stares a little too long at the ceiling and you whisper, "Still with us, Thomas." He always is, until he isn't. It's a Monday. He doesn't show. No explanation, no whisper, no shadow. The foreman shrugs. Maybe they finally moved, or he's sick. Joe mutters something you don't catch. You don't eat lunch that day, or the next. You walk past his trapdoor every shift, and it stays open, unlit, still. One night, you find a piece of twine knotted around the handle. A boy's trick. To remember which way it swings. You untie it slowly, pocket it, and walk on. That Friday, you see his brother. Taller, older, the one who works in the iron shop. He says, "Mum said he's not going back. Fever took him bad." You ask if he made it. The brother shrugs. "Dunno. She didn't say." You nod and walk away. The mine doesn't pause. The carts keep rolling, the picks keep swinging, and the door, they assign it to another boy by Monday. Smaller, quieter. No, singing yet. Not yet. But he will. Until he doesn't. It starts as a tickle. Not the kind that makes you laugh. The kind that feels like a splinter in your windpipe. Sharp and dry. You cough once. Then again. Then again. By noon, your chest sounds like a gravel pit, and your fellow miners are offering you side glances that hover somewhere between concern and annoyance. No one wants to work next to someone who sounds like they're about to rupture. "Coal cough," Joe mutters. He doesn't even look up when he says it. Just like that, it has a name. Your name. Your cough. It's the kind of thing you've heard, for years. Whispers about old men who rattle when they breathe. Men who sit outside their homes with blankets on their knees and eyes sunken deeper than the shaft you work in. The kind of men whose voices sound like dry leather rubbing together. You always figured it was age, bad luck, genetics maybe. Turns out it's just the job. The coal dust lives in your lungs now. Not around them, in them. It coats your throat like tar, settles in your ribs like mold. You can feel it when you lie down, when you eat, when you laugh. Though, you do that less and less lately. The doctor, if you can call him that, visits the pit once a month. More of a company man than a healer. Shows up in a coat too clean to be trusted. Checks a few pulses, offers sage advice like drink water, and get some rest. You find him after shift and show him the rag you've been coughing into. It's red. Coal workers' pneumoconiosis, he says. All syllables and no sympathy. Common. Avoid dust. Get fresh air. Sleep well. You stare at him like he's announced you should go live on the moon. Fresh air, you say, voice rasping. Where exactly would I get that? The pub? The alley behind the bakery? He smiles. You're not a prisoner. You nod slowly. No, I'm just poor. He shrugs and walks away. You cough so hard that night you vomit. Nothing much comes up. Your stomach gave up days ago. What emerges is mostly bile, flecked with the kind of black you stop questioning after the first year in the mine. You try to hide it from the others, but they know. They always know. Miners notice everything. Joe hears you hacking in the corner and says nothing. Mary hands you a tin mug with something that smells vaguely like tea and strongly like boiled despair. You sip it. It helps. For about 5 minutes, next morning, you try to convince yourself it's better. You swing your legs off the cot, spit something chunky into a basin, and step into your boots with the grace of a man 40 years older than he is. Your bones ache like winter's moved in permanently. In the lift, no one talks, just breathing. Your breath is the loudest. Your lungs make a wet sound with every inhale like boots in marsh mud. The light at the top shrinks to a coin, then to nothing. The darkness settles like always, fast, full, absolute. You walk, you cough, you work. The coal doesn't care that your lungs are disintegrating. The rock doesn't care that you wince with every swing. The pickaxe doesn't care that you can't lift your arms as high as you used to. The work is the same. It just takes more of you now. You find ways to make it hurt less. Wrapping cloth around your mouth, breathing through your nose, shorter strokes with the pick. Spitting every 10 minutes to keep your throat from drying out completely. None of it helps. By midday, your nose bleeds. Joe doesn't look at you anymore. Mary does. Once. It's a long look, and it says, "You're next." The morning comes, but it doesn't arrive with light. Not down here. Down here it arrives with the sound of boots shuffling over wet stone, the hiss of breath drawn through teeth, and the long, slow exhale that everyone lets out when they realize they're still alive enough to hate it. Your cough greets the shift before you do. It comes up from your ribs like it's been mining its own tunnel through your chest, rattling your sternum with every exhale. Black spit again. You wipe it on your sleeve and watch the flecks shimmer like coal dust in the lamplight. Except it isn't coal anymore. Not all of it. There's red in the black now. You don't say anything. Joe notices. He always does. He doesn't ask, just gives. You a look, half warning, half sympathy. You nod. That's all you've got energy for. Your ribs ache from the inside out. Down in the shaft the air tastes thick. Not just heavy, thick. Like syrup poured through a chimney. You can feel it clinging to your teeth. The damp is so complete, it has weight. Your lantern flickers with it, struggling to stay lit in the fog of heat and moisture. You swing your pick with your left arm more today. Not because it's stronger, but because your right side screams when you twist too far. You've started counting the number of strikes you can manage before you have to lean on the handle and wheeze. Today, it's 14. Down from 21 last week. You tell yourself it's just the weather. You both know better. A few feet down, Mary's wheezing too. Her cough is deeper than yours, and when she spits, she hides it behind her glove. Everyone's hiding something now. Their blood, their breath, their fear. One of the younger boys, Jacob, maybe, or Sam, asks why no one sees the doctor. Joe laughs so hard he nearly chokes. The doctor? He wheezes. The doctor's been dead 3 winters. All we've got now is old Bill and a bottle of gin. Old Bill, for the record, isn't a doctor. He's a bootmaker's cousin who once stitched up a horse. But he has a steady hand and an iron stomach, and sometimes that's enough. Still, someone gives you directions to the infirmary. It's a room behind the company store, half full of empty crates, and one table stained like a butcher's apron. There's a man there who claims to have once assisted a surgeon in London. He asks what's wrong. You cough in response. He nods, as if that tells him everything. Coal lung, he says. Rest, fresh air, clean water. You laugh. Not because it's funny, because you can't help it. It comes up out of you in a violent bark that bends you at the waist and paints the floor with black phlegm. The man doesn't flinch, just slides a rag across the stain and repeats himself like he's reading from scripture. Rest, fresh air, clean water. You mutter something about moving to the seaside. He doesn't smile. Back in the shaft, someone finds you sitting against a beam. You tell them you're just catching your breath. They nod. They don't say it, but you know they're thinking the same thing you are. You're catching something. Your work slows. Not enough for the foreman to say anything, but enough for the others to adjust. Joe swings heavier when you're in his crew. Mary lugs a second load now and then, pretending she forgot whose turn it was. You hate it. You hate needing it. You hate not stopping it. At lunch, the bread goes down hard. Not because it's stale, though it is, but because your throat feels lined with thorns. You drink your water too fast and end up coughing for 10 minutes. When it's over, there's blood on your sleeve again. Should go home, someone mutters. Home's worse, you rasp. They don't argue. When the shift ends, you stand by the lift and watch the others rise ahead of you. Faces grey, shoulders hunched, coughing in harmony like a choir of old iron kettles. You ride up last. The sky is dark when you emerge. Not night, just the kind of winter afternoon that never fully becomes day. Your legs carry you home like they've memorized the way. Inside, the fire is out. The coals are cold. Your boots are soaked. You sit by the hearth and stare at your hands until the shadows take the edges of the room. You cough once more. It tastes like metal and morning. Tomorrow you'll go back. Because what else is there? You're not sick enough to stop. Not yet. Sick. Enough to be afraid? Absolutely. But you're too tired for fear now. You crawl into bed with lungs full of stone and a prayer for smaller coughs in the morning. You collapse near the end of shift. No warning. No drama. Just the quiet give of knees that can't hold your weight anymore. The soft clatter of your pick hitting the ground. And a strange moment where you feel like your body has forgotten how to be vertical. Joe's the first to notice. You don't hear what he says, only the tone, rough and afraid. A rare thing, hearing fear in his voice. You lie curled beside the shaft wall, cheek against stone, the coal dust warm against your skin. Your breath whistles like a kettle left too long. It rattles your ribs, and your vision pulses at the edges. They carry you out like a bundle of kindling. 6 men, one tattered coat wrapped around your shoulders, 2 old boots dragging through the mud. You remember the sky. It's been weeks since you saw it last. Maybe months. It hurts to look at. Not because of the sun, but because of what it means. They take you home, not to a hospital. There isn't one. Just your one-room flat, shared, with your brother, his wife, and their new baby, who cries like he already knows this life isn't worth the noise. They lay you down in the corner on a pile of blankets. Someone puts a tin cup in your hand, and you try to drink, but your lips don't quite understand the instruction. Half of it spills down your chin. Your sister-in-law wipes it away with the corner of her sleeve, not unkindly. You sleep for 3 days, or maybe you just don't wake. When you finally blink awake, it's night again, or still. Hard to tell. A single candle flickers on the mantel. The fire's out. The baby's crying. Your brother's chair is empty. You try to sit up. Fail. Your lungs mutiny the moment you shift. They rattle like coins in a tin, tight and echoing. Every breath tastes like copper and coal. You cough until you see stars. Your brother brings a doctor the next day. Not a real one. Just a man who once studied under someone who studied under someone who studied medicine. He pokes your ribs, listens to your chest, taps your knees. Done for the mines, he says at last. Lungs too far gone, spine's half stone. He needs clean air and rest. Your brother laughs, not cruelly, just because the idea is absurd. Clean air? Rest? Where? There's no pension, no compensation. No grand speech about your sacrifice or medals for your service to industry. Just a nod, a sigh, a pat on the shoulder that somehow makes it worse. Your sister-in-law sells your boots. Your pick disappears one night. You don't ask where it went. You hope someone else is using it. You hope they're stronger than you were. Your days are filled with silence, the occasional cup of broth, a short walk to the edge of the street, if you can manage it, and coughing. Always coughing. You sound like an old house settling. You don't sleep well anymore. Not because of the pain, but because you keep dreaming of the shaft, of the boy with the door, of Joe's voice calling down the tunnel. You're 30. That's what they say anyway. You don't feel 30. You feel hollow. Like someone scraped out the part of you that held motion and breath and left just enough to remember the difference. One day, a neighbor brings a newspaper. You haven't read one in years. There's a story buried in the back. A minister speaking about labor reforms. Something about shorter shifts, child limits, safety checks. You don't laugh. You don't scoff. You just fold the paper and set it aside. Because maybe, just maybe, they're too late for you, but not for someone else. The boy with the dog drawings, the one who hummed lullabies to his lunch pail. You think of him more, now than ever. One evening, Joe visits. He's slower, greyer, still has that same tired smile. Mary's gone, he says after a pause. Shaft collapse. You nod. Words feel like coal in your mouth. She was singing that morning, he adds. Funny, isn't it? You shake your head. Not because it's funny, but because it's familiar. He leaves you with a flask and a nod. That night, you sit by the fire, or what's left of it. The coals are low. The shadows are long. You reach for the flask, but your hand shakes too much to hold it. Your brother helps you. He doesn't say anything, just stays beside you. In that moment, the silence feels like forgiveness. The sun rises, but you don't. Not anymore. You watch it through the warped window pane. Thin streaks of grey light filtered through coal smoke and damp air. It's the first sunrise you've seen in months, maybe years, without a pickaxe waiting for you. Your bones ache like they've been filed down to the marrow. Your spine crooks inward like it's bowing to gravity. Every breath still whistles, still burns. You cough, and it comes out raw. Black streaks on the handkerchief, same as yesterday, same as last year. The doctor doesn't come anymore. Not since the last visit when he said you should make peace with things. You nodded, not because you agreed, but because your voice had given up days earlier. There's not much left now, just you, a blanket that smells like mildew and old tea, a chipped mug, and the corner of the room that used to be your brother's pantry, but now counts as your retirement home. No pension, no plaque, just a soft square of floor you're slowly sinking into. People say you're lucky to be alive. You try to believe them. A boy from the bakery drops off stale bread once a week. You pay him with stories. Not grand ones. No battles. No escapes. Just small things. The sound of a canary singing before silence. The feeling of cold water after 12 hours in dust. The way Joe once laughed so hard he dropped a shovel on his own foot. The boy doesn't laugh much. He listens. That's enough. Sometimes you forget where you are. You dream of shafts, of long corridors of soot and lantern glow, of soft singing and hard silence. You wake up sweating, heart pounding, body frozen. The only difference between the dream and real life is the dirt under your nails. One day your brother asks if you want to go outside. You nod. It takes 20 minutes to get you up, 10 to bundle you in rags, 5 more to breathe through the stairs. But eventually, you're out. On the stoop, wrapped in a shawl, legs like matchsticks, watching the street like it's theatre. A dog chases a cart. A woman curses at her laundry. A miner spits black and lights a pipe. And for the first time in weeks, the wind doesn't taste like defeat. It tastes like something old, like the river you used to splash in before your first shift. You sit until your breath gives out. Your brother carries you back inside. He doesn't say anything, just folds the blanket over your lap and nods. That night, you don't sleep. You lie awake, blinking at the ceiling, tracing the cracks in the plaster like they're veins of a map. You follow them with your eyes and pretend they lead somewhere, warm. You think of the girl you once danced with during the Midsummer Festival. You think of the dog you had as a child. You think of the time the foreman called you the fast one before your cough slowed you down. You don't think of the pain. Not tonight. You drift sometime before dawn. Not quite asleep. Not quite gone. In that strange place where memory wraps around you like a blanket, and even the ache of your ribs feels distant. You dream of a field. No coal. No tunnels. No boots crunching on slate. Just a wide field. Golden. Breezy. And there's someone there. Maybe Joe, maybe Mary, maybe your own mother, long gone. They wave. You wave back. And for the first time in years, you stand up straight. You don't know what happens next. But in the morning, your brother finds you still as stone. No coughing, no breath, just the soft ghost of a smile on your lips, as if the dream hadn't quite ended yet. They bury you in the churchyard next to a row of other men who died with coal in their lungs and calluses on their hands. The grave marker is wood, the name carved in rough lines. There's no money for stone, but someone, maybe the boy from the bakery, maybe your brother, leaves a lump of coal on the mound. Not as a joke. As a reminder, you lived, you dug, you endured, and now you rest. In the town's pub, your name gets mentioned once. A miner mutters, "Tough old bastard, that one." Another raises a glass, not for celebration, for recognition, because in the end, your story is theirs too, not one of glory, but of grit, of breath spent like currency, of lungs filed for divorce, and a body that finally stopped paying rent.